What is it? This one?
I installed like new package.
Oh man.
Like this new desktop. So it looked better than this. So it's cool.
Ooh, I forgot to mute everyone else.
So now then I'm good. I just need to click on the hello thing.
Yeah, in the email I sent you, just follow that link.
Clean up.
Cameraman.
And then you'll want to screen share on yours.
Computer is the computer.
And then
So his screen is sharing right now, so you should be able to toggle between him and yours.
are we good?
Yep.
All right.
All right. Introduce you and then we'll get started. Okay, welcome everybody. I think there's a couple of new faces here. Most of you I've seen before, but not all of you. We're Santa Barbara JavaScript. We are a group of JavaScript enthusiasts here in town. We've got all different skill levels represented. Some of us have been using it since it was first released, and we get lots of people who have never looked at a line of JavaScript before. But one of our guiding principles is that everybody's welcome. No questions are off limits. We got enough elitist, passive-aggressive engineers out there who claim their language is superior to ours. We don't make such claims. I think arguing over languages is kind of self-work. If there was one perfect language, we'd all be using Lisp. But we have a variety of activities. We have once a month, we have these meetups. We're trying to get code reviews going every once in a while for people who don't have an audience for their code, who want to get professional feedback, consultants, contractors, and things like that. But meanwhile, we've got these things going once a month. We've got two more on the calendar. One for July, which is going to be Intro to Web Workers, which Samir over here is going to be giving. And then in August, we have Intro to Command Line Applications in Node, which one of the guys from Procore is going to be giving. That said, we are looking for speakers. So I want to fill the rest of the calendar up. That means all of you in this room, if you want to speak about something JavaScript, let me know, or let Garvin, my co-organizer, know. Any topic that's JavaScript related is open. Nothing's off bounds. If you are doing music in JavaScript or art or programming knitting machines or whatever, we want to hear about it. Okay. So before anything else, I just want to thank our sponsors. WorkZones is hosting us tonight. Yay, WorkZones. If anybody's interested in checking out the space here, we can get you a guest pass to come try it out. They offer obviously co-working space and meeting rooms and things like that for people who don't have an office of their own. The pizza is by my employer, Agilicis, another one of our sponsors. Yay, Agilicis. I'm trying to convince him to buy beer for us too, but it's kind of pushing it right now, so I'll keep working on it. PayJunction just became our newest sponsor. They hosted us last month at their location downtown. It was a great event, and we hope to host more there again. And then lastly, we have a partner program with O'Reilly Media. Through that, we get discounts on books and videos and conference passes. And if we use the discount on conference passes 3 times, I get a free conference pass. No, I'm kidding. I'll raffle it off or something like that. But that's about it for me for housekeeping stuff. If I haven't met you, please come and say hello before the night's over. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Kino, our speaker.
Oh, okay, so just 1 second, let me just move to the presentation. So tonight we're going to be talking about the HTML5 canvas element, and so I just want to give you like a brief overview of what we're going to do. Is how we're doing this presentation, I realized that I wasn't very sure about where the canvas element fit into the whole web development world, so I ended up doing an extra presentation about web development. But basically, this presentation, at the end of it, you will hopefully have a good understanding of what the canvas is and where it fits in web technology, and I'll give you a bunch of quick examples or easy examples if you want to get into it. I'm going to be using a lot of CodePen, hopefully, and so the links, if you want to code along in your computer, there's a subreddit for this talk. So in that subreddit, you get resources to Canvas, you get resources to other technologies, you get links to the CodePen examples. Is everybody familiar with CodePen? Or so you can code along or inspect them at home if you don't want to see it. I also technology talks and web talks are usually kind of a dry subject. So I'll talk about it myself a little bit, but I'm a cartoonist, and I used to be a cartoonist, and so I tried to make it a bit more tongue-in-cheek and a bit more fun, so something that you can just relax, because it's the end of the day and you probably don't want to work a lot now, so just relax and grab a drink and just enjoy the talk. So this is not very serious, right? And but hopefully at the end of it you learn something, and then I hope you get a laugh out of it. And so I'm also have a very thick accent, so I'm hoping that the presentation will do most of the talking for me. So if you have any questions, just shoot. And it's a long presentation, so they want us out of here at 8:30. So if the question is relevant, I'll fit it in. But if I start getting into a tangent, please bring me back in some way. And having said that, I also want to thank Tim and Garvin for inviting me here. They're taking a risk because they haven't even asked me what I do. So I'm guessing they just they figured yeah, this guy he seems like he knows what he talks about, and so we're just going to invite him to present. So thanks to Tim and Garvin for inviting me here tonight. I heard that. Anyways, so let's get started. And who am I? So my name is Eugenio Noyola Leon. That doesn't precisely roll out of the tongue, so I go by Kino. And so you can call me Kino, but my real name is Eugenio Noyola Leon. And I am a front-end web developer, first and foremost, because that's what I've been doing for the longest time. I've been coding for probably 20 years now. I'm also a neuroscience and artificial intelligence nerd. I've been studying that, and so I'm not saying that the singularity is near, but if it's near, it's probably going to be happening in JavaScript. So that's something you should keep in mind. I'm also a UI UX guy and a budding industrial designer. So these days I do mostly, I have a studio, an industrial design studio, which basically I make products, or I help companies make prototypes of products. So basically I'm like an inventor, and so they hire me to make things that don't exist. And so I design them and I help them figure out how to make them. So I do that half the time, and then the other half I do web development services. And so I have a company for that. So in case, that's my plug, in case you guys need either a designer or a developer and want to take a chance with me, let me know. And after that, I'm an ex-economist. My first career was as an economist. I used to be a stockbroker and an analyst for one of the biggest banks in the world. And then one day I woke up and I figured out what I'm doing is not helping anybody. I got a lot of money out of it, but that's it, The money's gone, so but I'm happy. And I'm also an immigrant. I'm originally from Mexico. I came here on a vacation about 12 years ago, and I just stayed because of a girl, and then drama happened and life happened, and I don't know, I ended up here. And I've also had careers in hospitality and other things that I'd rather not go into detail right now because they're not relevant. If you want to know more, go to my website. It's k3no.com, and hopefully there's more information about design or whatever. I also have a code pen and a LinkedIn and whatever. All the information usually comes from it. It's at different stages of development, so just keep that in mind. So, having said that, that's all about me. Let's move forward. And Canva what? So that's basically what the hell is Canvas? And so who knows what Canvas is? So about half. So that's good. And so the HTML Canvas element can be used to draw graphics via scripting in JavaScript. And so I basically copy-pasted that from the Mozilla documentation. So if you want that documentation from the textbook explanation of what the canvas is, that's it. But as I was copy-pasting this, I was realizing that it doesn't really tell me anything. Why does it exist? Why can we use it for what? How is it different from say just adding an image in a web page? So this whole different presentation that I'm going to talk about came out of just this little realization. And so the next thing I want to talk about is why Canvas. And to tell you why Canvas, I want to tell you about graphics on the browser. And this is the story of nuance, performance, and most importantly, cats. So so why cats? So since the beginning, and I told him it was going to be a since the beginning quote. And I'm also a cartoonist, and this is why I did it this way. By the way, I hope it entertains you a little bit. And so since the beginning, people have wanted to talk about and share you pictures and videos of cats, right? So apparently, and so people just want to show you the cats apparently. And so to make this happen, we invented this thing called the internet, right? Or as I like to call it, a machine of cats, right? So we have a machine of cats, right? So now you're probably wondering, how do I display cats in my browser? And so each one of you guys is a developer. So at some point you're well, I need to display cats or whatever, charts or I don't know what he does, but I don't want to guess. So this is an overview of what the technology is available and how we got here and whatever. So is that clear? Is that crystal clear? You just looking at this, just are okay, I'm gonna choose this technology over this other technology to display a cat. And so I thought about, is this clear? And then I realized, well, this is kind of messy. And the cat just gave up there, And so one of my favorite quotes in the world, I'm also, again, an amateur neuroscientist, if you want, or AI developer. And so one of my favorite quotes that I found out while researching neuroscience and how we ended up having a brain and how the brain works is this one by a guy called Tadeusz Dostoevsky, which I'm probably mispronouncing. And he's an evolutionary scientist, and he says nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution, right? And so it's followed by my second favorite quote, "Evolution is a drunk, stubborn architect," by Professor Cat. And what does this mean? It means that think about evolution as a drunk guy that comes late at night home, and he's hungry, and he's drunk, and his wife is asleep, and his kids are asleep, or his roommates are asleep, and he wants a Hot Pocket. But he can't go to the kitchen and turn on the microwave because he's gonna make a racket, and he's gonna wake up everybody. So he thinks, what can I do? And so at some point, he decides to grab a piece of foil and put a Hot Pocket inside the foil, goes outside into his car, turns the car on and puts it in the engine, and 5 minutes later, he has a hot, warm Hot Pocket. And so that's success, right? So Evolution is a bit like that, it's like evolution takes whatever it can get its hands on, and whatever is successful, it ends up like repeating. And so that's the sentiment behind the first quote and the explanation of the second one by Professor Katz. So by this logic, at some point you get you end up with cars that have a little toaster oven, in the dashboard or something like that. And so if you just keep something out of this talk, if you remember something, is that whenever you find a mess and you want to see how that mess came about and where the mess is going to end up, just look at the history and the evolution of that mess to understand what happened, right? And so that's Professor Cat is thinking about hot pockets. So now, why the mess? So now I need to explain to you why this mess happened. And in order to explain to you about this mess, I need to quote, and I feel sorry, but I need to quote Pitbull. And he says, to understand the future, we have to go back in time. And so what this means is that we are going to see how did we end up with that mess that I showed you 5 slides ago, right? So in the beginning, 1991, we ended up, and this is a history of web technologies, which I'm going to try to make as fast and painless as possible. There's a lot of technologies that I'm going to miss, and the dates are not exact, because nothing is generated or becomes popular overnight, and nothing dies overnight. So things that happen in the web happen over periods of time, years, months, and they die over periods of months. And so in retrospect, that's why we need to look at these things to see what happened, and just to give you an idea of where we're going with technology, right? So 1991, first web pages, we had HTTP and HTML1. And we have dinosaur cats roaming back then. And so we have a very basic way of describing information online, and through HTML1, and a means of conveying that information or bouncing it around through HTTP, right? So fast forward to 1994, we got cookies and HTML2. And HTML2, this is important, HTML keeps on progressing by a numerical addendum, and all it means is that we get new elements with new say when there's HTML2, we get X element or X tag introduced that supports a different type of image, or a paragraph or something centered. Okay, and we got cookies because now we get to store some information inside users' browsers. And moving forward, 1995, we got SSL to make information sharing more secure. We got JavaScript, which is the reason we're here. And we got HTML3, it keeps on progressing. But and so what's important is we got a thing called client-side scripting and the DOM, which is a document object model, which allows us to interact through JavaScript with the markup that we have. And so now we can modify our pages, right? And moving forward in 1996, we end up having at that point, it was very early, but nobody knew at that point we already had everything that we were ever gonna need, and or at least until today. And because we got CSS, which is cascading style sheets, and that gives us a way of modifying the display of HTML, right? So we have markup styling, we had client-side. 3 things in the DOM gives us a way of interacting with pages and pretty much doing everything we want. So at that point, we also got XML, because computers don't like the way we talk. So they need to be addressed in a different way. So that's why we ended up inventing XML. And I take the term "we" very literally, because I did not know it. But so XML, we can now communicate to computers in a format that it's easy for them to parse. And we also got a thing called Flash. Everybody knows about Flash, or somebody knows, doesn't know. But basically, Flash, what it did is we had these technologies on the desktop that allow you to do other things more advanced that you could with what we had with the JavaScript, the HTTP, the HTML, and so on and so forth. So that it introduced like scripting, graphics, and video. Scripting, by the way, is very, very similar to JavaScript. So it took a lot from ActionScript, and I used to be an ActionScript developer for like many years. And
Which is actually a dialect of ActionScript.
it's yes. So I mean, it's again, you know, there's like a lot of I don't know how to say it, but you know, there's like a lot of mingling of like, you know, those ECMAScript like, you know, type languages back then, you know. And so Flash was awesome because like, you know, it allowed you to do things that you couldn't just do, and but it was also not very good because it was you had to pay for it, and then it was like a secret club, and I think it you know, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but you know, I think it was great for what it was at the point. And so moving forward, like 1998, we got Java, which was supposed to be a competitor to JavaScript. It didn't, but now it found like, you know, a resurgence in the server side. Again, CSS2 has and HTML kept on progressing. In 1999, we got like Ajax and web fonts, things to improve like communication and the display of fonts, obviously. And 2000, you know, we got XHTML, which is like a strict version of HTML, which now I believe is like in disuse, and HTML5 is has taken over. So again, these things, like everything, you know, like in evolution, like, you know, you throw everything at the wall, see what sticks. And by 2001, and this is important, we got like SVG, which is scalable vector graphics, and which an XML format. And this is my favorite type of graphics, and I think is the best type of graphics to use right now on the web. I know it's this is a Canvas talk, but you know, I like SVG better. But Canvas has its uses, you know, and I'll talk about why I ended up like choosing to talk about Canvas, because I think it's not very well understood. So this is why it's an introduction to Canvas. 2002, we got like Active Server Pages, ASP, which, you know, again, it's sort of like a web framework that was in competition with all the other things we had. By 2003, we got like CMS's WordPress. And 2004, we got like raster graphics in the shape of Canvas. And Canvas was a gift from Apple. It came with OS X WebKit. And again, like many things in the web, like, you know, some software company, usually like Microsoft, Apple, or Mozilla, comes up with a new technology, you know, and it's up to the users and the developers like yourselves to like just like adopt it, and through like this adoption, like things like, you know, become popular, and through like becoming popular, they later get integrated into like the standards. And so that's sort of like how it has been worked. And so there's always this tension about like, you know, what's the new thing, what's the next thing. And in case you haven't noticed, this is a cat playing with like a big piece of yarn. By 2005, we got like Markdown, which is an HTML preprocessor. Just makes your life a little bit easier. And that's the way I see it, you know. So now we have like JavaScript preprocessors, we got like CSS preprocessors, and HTML preprocessors. And the first one was like a thing called Markdown, which I'm sure like most of you know how to use, and which makes like, you know, things like making like bold text easier by just like adding asterisks or, you know, stuff like that. 2006, we got like jQuery, which is like 80% of the web uses jQuery today. And why do they use jQuery? Because like, you know, some things in JavaScript are like repetitive, so you don't want to like write like a bunch of code to just select an element. So then jQuery found a niche in it. I don't know if jQuery is going to be around, you know, and but today, you know, a lot of websites use it, so you know, it's something important that you need to know. And Sass was like, you know, again, is like the most used preprocessor, like CSS preprocessor, and that just basically means that, you know, your like styling sheets have like some programming abilities, and then how like, you know, you don't have to like do the semicolon at the end of the line, and then, you know, you can nest things and stuff like that. So, you know, it makes life a little bit easier. The backbone XML HTTP request is like, again, progressing as we're talking, as we're like moving forward. And now a monkey wrench. By 2007, we got like the iPhone, which means that now we have a mobile web. So now developers need to worry about like making things fit into like smaller screens and run on different like operating systems that are like mobile, because in the eye of the consumer, like, you know, a web page is a web page, whether it's like, you know, online or like on the phone. So 2007 was the iPhone, pretty much followed by 2008 by Android. And 2008 we got like HTML5, which, you know, is like was all the rage at that point. And what HTML5 means is that it brings a lot of niceties or like new elements and things that weren't heard of, and to deal with like both the mobile web and the advances in you know in hardware. So now you gotta have things like a drag and drop. We got like the Canvas API, and we got like Web Audio, which Garvin gave like a talk about, you know, a while ago, which was a great talk, I think. Yes. And so by 2009, like CSS3 now it advances in modules, and the modules like advance by, you know, like by features. And at that point we get like JavaScript preprocessors, like CoffeeScript, TypeScript. Like, no, I'm like, I forget, like I'm not like, you know, the best with like the history of JavaScript preprocessors. But for instance, like I use a thing called Babel, which some of you might use, which basically, if you write in ES6, it just converts it to like, you know, like JavaScript that runs everywhere else. So then, you know, that's another use for like a preprocessor. And so CSS3 modules, you get like animation, you get like a thing called a flexbox, because people want to display cats and grids. So you get transitions and web workers, which I believe is the next talk. And at about that time, Flash and XHTML and a thing called Silverlight started like dying. And these technologies died, or like are dying. They're not completely gone, because they have been supplanted by newer, better things, or like things that are like just more accessible, right? And so moving forward, like now we get like sort of like the modern web development, and we have like 2010, we get like JavaScript frameworks with Angular 1. 2011, we get 3D graphics, and we get like via WebGL. We get like sophisticated animation tools like request animation frame. CSS3 again, like by the modules, it keeps on like progressing. We get like filters that allow you to do things like the Instagram and you know more sophistication. 2012 we get like again like the elements sometimes get defined at some point, like the web audio, and then like, you know, the API comes later. So this is an example. That's the 2012. That's the audio API, and again, like, you know, it's like from when the things are like defined or accepted by the W3 consortium, like the WW consortium, to that point where they're like popular, it might take a while. And meanwhile, the private sector is doing React, which is which right now I'm like completely hooked on React. And which I'll talk about it a little bit later, and how it like it assimilates a little bit like what Canvas does. And but you have all these very sophisticated things that are driving forward web development. And finally, by like, you know, 2000, like today, 2015, we get like ES6, which is like an improvement, a vast improvement over like JavaScript, and Angular 2, which again keeps the progress of the private sector, or like more professional efforts to advance web development. And ES6 team, I believe, did like a great talk, and has like a 3-part series on like all the niceties of it. And again, if you're not doing ES6, I encourage you to do it. It's painless, and I'll show you how. And but now, you know, we're like completely bundled. So what I want you to do is like go back and see if you more or less understand a bit better this picture. And I hope you at least know where it came from. Okay? So after we're like all now tangled, and there's like a source, and there's like a very nice website about it. It's on the subreddit that I send you a link, or that the link is in the meetup. You can find a link to that website. It's called The Evolution of the Web. And it has like, it's nicer than this, and you know, it has all the information and the links to Wikipedia if you're like curious. So now let's talk about practical examples of the technologies that I just mentioned. And of course, they're going to be with cats. So, and so for this, I'm going to go to a thing called CodePen, which I've been using for the last few months, and it's amazing. And it allows you to like live code and see the result on the side. So the first example that I want to show you is a thing called the picture element, the image element, and the polyfill. And the polyfill, which I'm probably mispronouncing, allows you to incorporate newer elements into older browsers. So if your like browser doesn't, if you are like stuck in an Internet Explorer, or you have to support Internet Explorer like via polyfill, you can support like newer elements. So the picture and the image element. So let's see if this works. And so that's a kitten, right? So what happens when I start making the viewport like smaller is that the kitten just changed to a newer kitten, or like a cat just changed to a new cat, right? So if I change it again, the size, you know, it changed again. And finally, I'll change it one more time, and you get Bill Murray. If you ever need to like use an image on the web, there's these two amazing websites called Place Kittens and Phil Murray. And what they do is you just give them like a size of an image, and they'll fill it with either like a kitten or a picture of a cat, or a picture of like Bill Murray. So it's a great resource. I recommend you you go for them. So then this is like Phil Murray and Place Kittens, right? And so if you go to the code, and again, you don't need to remember any of this. The code is there live, so whenever you feel like doing it. And so here, like again, like this is an introduction to CodePen. And at the top, you have like an HTML section. Then you have like a CSS section, and you have a JavaScript section, right? And what is amazing about this is that if you want to add like a library, you can do it very, very easily. You can just like click on the settings, and then if you want to add React, Angular, jQuery, whatever it is that you want, Bootstrap, Tree.js, D3, you just like click on that thing and it's done. And even more amazing than that, it has like a preprocessor in it and a list of them. So you have CoffeeScript, TypeScript, and Babel. And so for instance, like if I wanted to use like Babel, and what it does is like, you know, grabs like features from like ES6 to like other versions, like lower versions of JavaScript. And say, for instance, like I do let, which is, I'm probably gonna, I suck at live coding. But if I declare like, you know, an object and you see the view compile, then you see the use strict, and then you see what I just typed, which is the let variable turned into a var, right? So so that's what like a preprocessor, in this case Babel, does. And so it's the same idea with CSS. You want to like add less Sass or something more esoteric. And again, you know, you have like also for HTML, you can add like stuff like Markdown, like Jade. So, and if you need like something very custom, you can add it. So anyway, so this is like, I'm just giving you like, you know, the small tour of like a CodePen. They don't pay me. They gave me a free t-shirt, but you know, I don't know if that counts. And so basically back to the example. So you have picture element and Place Kittens. And basically what it does is that depending on the size of the element or like the viewport, it gives you a different source for the image. And it's all done on HTML. And so you have like the picture element here, and then you have different sources for like different resolutions, or like, sorry, like widths of the viewport, right? So that is the first example. So we are now going to talk about Canvas, which is like, you know, what I'm talking about. And the Canvas element deals more with pixels. And so what this is doing is glitching out like a picture of kittens in real time. And if you see what we have here is that we don't have any HTML. we have very, very little CSS, and we have like a lot of JavaScript. And so first takeaway, Canvas lives in JavaScript. Everything is done in JavaScript. Second takeaway of it is that it is live, and it deals with like a lot of information and a lot of pixels. So for instance, like this is, I'm going to show you what happens when I change just something very simple. And sorry, I like this one better. So I just changed the source of the picture of the kittens in real time, and it's glitching it on real time. And so all these things, and I'm doing it, you know, on a browser, you know. And so the setup alone that would take in my computer would like take like a few hours. But like the bit is that it is actually accessing the pixels of the image and modifying them, right? So, and it's doing it in real time. So at this point, that's all I want you to remember. Then we have other things like CSS transforms and animations. So, and this is the example. And so this is a switch with a cat, and then whenever you click on the switch, it just goes to dark. And so again, the setup is no JavaScript, very little HTML, and all the CSS that you want. So now you can do things like this with CSS, and you can also do them with like Canvas, and you can do it, you know, with other technologies. So that's why I'm like bringing these examples up to show you that, you know, there's many ways to deal with this cat situation. So now we have like SVG, which is like scalable vector graphics, which again is my favorite type of format in the web. A CSS preprocessor and CSS transforms. And what this does, I mean, it looks very simple. Just basically just some text and a cat that comes out and says hi. And then you mouse over the ear, and then it just like moves a little bit. And the setup again is some HTML. In this case, you have to include like the paths or like the graphic information in the HTML. A very sophisticated CSS file with keyframes, with animation and stuff like that, and no JavaScript, right? So, and last but not least, we have a thing called 3JS, which is WebGL. And WebGL, this is all with like 3D. And to show you what I mean, this is, again, a very cool example. So this is a cat, and the cat is staring at the ball. And the cat gets the ball. It's very nice. All in 3D. And the setup to do this is you have almost no HTML, very little CSS, and all the JavaScript in the world. So the takeaway from this, and this employs Canvas. And the first confusion that people have with Canvas is that Canvas is both like a 2D technology and a 3D technology. So they use the same Canvas element. And the difference is that they are like optimized to doing different things, and they have like different APIs for dealing with 3D graphics and geometric forms rather than shapes, right? So, so these are like the practical examples of the mess that I tried to explain to you, and and all the elements or all the ways that you can use right now to bring cats to your browser. Is there any questions so far? Yes.
Why is SVG your favorite?
SVG is my favorite. I'm going to talk about it like in a bit, but in a nutshell, it's scalable, basically. So a lot of what I do or I've done professionally is grab stuff that is like a big, portrait, and then just shrink it down and make sure like that the graphics and the experience like translates. So SVG does that automatically, And so Canvas is harder, Canvas you have to rest of the thing to like make it responsive. And I mean it's sort of like easy-ish, but it's not as straightforward as SVG. And SVG, the other thing is that it doesn't lose resolution no matter how big or small you go. So an image that you import from a picture, will lose a resolution, and SVG won't. But again, you don't have like pictures; you have like more like illustrations. And so that's the thing. It's like you also can have like picture elements, and or like regular images in SVG, but you can do a lot with it. So
You can also interact with the SVG elements, XML elements, right?
you can. For that, I believe that CSS also like has a lot, and just like regular DOM like also has like a lot going for it. So they go neck and neck.
Like event handlers on oh wow.
Yes.
You can't really do 3D with SVG, right? There's not necessarily an underlying graphics engine.
You could, but it's not. I mean, it would be hard. It's like there's like some 3D graphics and charts doing like using SVG, but yeah, no, like it's. I mean, you can, but you can do anything you want, but it will just be kind of hard. I've done like 3D engines in Java and ActionScript like from scratch. So you can do anything you want, but it's just like a lot of work, So why do it if there's like easier ways? And I was talking to some of you before, and it's like I believe that technologies that win are technologies that like make things faster, not nicer, So so a lot of like technologies wants to make things like XHTML, like things to display in a certain way. And I believe like history has proven that it doesn't work that way. It's like just because it displays better or is like cleaner looking, it won't win the race. It has to be something that is faster. And I believe that's because like engineers like drive the conversation of web development more than designers. But anyways, that's a tangent. You should have thrown me something.
Back on topic.
Back on topic. Okay. So. Back to the presentation. So now is the part of the presentation that I need to tell you why you should use Canvas, or in other ways, tell me, Kat, dude, what makes Canvas so special. And so in general, I need to talk about two different ways of displaying information in your computer. One is called retain mode, and then the other one is called immediate mode. In retain mode, we're going to be talking about images, scalable vector graphics, CSS, basically DOM elements. And in immediate DOM, we're going to be talking about Canvas and WebGL. Canvas, it's, again, I don't make these things, so, Canvas refers to like the 2D information or graphics that use the Canvas element, and WebGL refers to the 3D information that uses Canvas, which is very confusing, but like most people understand it that way. So they talk WebGL when they talk 3D and Canvas when they talk 2D, even though both use the same element. And so how do the information, pixels, and DOM elements get displayed at the end of the day? So that's you. And so you type usually HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then you send that to a factory in your computer, a graphics library. And then that thing like composes your like scene, your web scene, and it also keeps it in memory. So things like React can work out of like a memory model of the DOM, and so if you want to access anything out of your page, you can do it, and you can do it on the console. So that's the proof that it's there, right? And so it finally constructs like a scene and a model, and then you finally end up with like the display of your cat on your browser, right? And so that's retain mode. And immediate mode, on the other side, on the other hand, you write JavaScript through the Canvas API or using the Canvas API, and then you get pixels that get pushed immediately to the browser. So it's faster because it doesn't have to deal with a memory model. Okay? So React does the same thing, but it does it with the DOM model itself. So, so this is the main difference. And the next slide talks about why this is such a big deal. But basically, I'll go into like the difference in between DOM and Canvas. So this is like a staring contest in between DOM elements and the Canvas. And so the process of the DOM is that it's easy to use. You have CSS to help you, easy animations, and easy responsive. So are we seeing like a thing here? It's just easy. The cons is that it's memory intensive for now. Maybe in the future, we're gonna get like better, better hardware, or like better optimization from browsers or like vendors. And so this difference might be less. But for now, it's tough doing things that you do on Canvas, that you can do on Canvas with the DOM. And I'll demonstrate in a bit. You don't have access to the pixels, and you don't have 3D. Again, you can probably do something, but it's gonna be hard. And the canvas, the pros is that it's fast, it's flexible. You can deal with many objects. You can deal with particles. You have access to the pixels, and you have access to 3D objects, and you can do your own engine if you want. The cons is that it's not crawlable, and this is a very, very important point. And is that whatever you put into the canvas, no text bot, no Google bot is going to arrive to it unless you add an extra element that robots can access, right? So the information inside the canvas, it's only for us humans at this point, unless you provide it a way out. It's complex, and it's do-it-yourself everything. If you want to do something that you do on CSS, more likely than not, you're going to have to code it by yourself. So it's very, very challenging, but at the same time, there's like 30 years of desktop graphic libraries and like know-how at your command, so you can do things fairly fast, And so when would you use like DOM elements, and as if you're like a web developer or work with web developers, you can use them for static images, high fidelity pictures of people, pictures of real cats, general web design, interactivity, etc. So basically for pretty much everything. When would you use Canvas? And you would use Canvas when you want to do complex visualizations, you want to do standalone animations, you want to do pixel manipulation, you want to do gaming, high performance, or you want to do real time. And so in other words, when nothing else works, give Canvas a chance. And so now I want to talk to you about exactly, or like specifically, how to use the canvas. And for this, again, I'm going to go back to CodePen examples. And I don't know if that helps a little bit. Yeah. And so the first thing is like, how do you work with the canvas? And this is fairly simple. This is a canvas up there. So, you just define the canvas tag. And CSS, you have nothing here. And then on the JavaScript, you start by defining the canvas as a variable that is going to be available to the whole JavaScript file. You get your element by whichever means you can. In this case, you're getting it by like vanilla JavaScript. And then you give it a context. And so these two lines are always going to be written whenever you're like working with the canvas. And if you were working with like a WebGL element, a 3D, you would like just change this to 3D, but we're not doing that. And again, since everything happens in JavaScript, you define the size of it. And so I'm gonna, so the light blue area is the canvas. And so you define a canvas, and then you give it like a width and a height. It's not responsive out of the box. So if I do this, the canvas just, stays here. So again, it's like at its most basic, it's a very dumb element because you can't really do much with it. What can you do is like, well, you can style it from JavaScript, CSS. If I remove that and remove the color, it just changes color, and But more likely than not, you define a canvas, and once it's defined, you want to add elements to it. And in this case, you're going to add an element by methods that happen through the API. In this case, we're going to just like define a field style, which is blue, and add a rectangle. And this is sort of important, and this is something I'm going to go back. But basically, the coordinate system is a local coordinate system. So basically, it means that your canvas exists in that area, and like the coordinates happen like at 0, 0 here, and then go that way in the x-axis and down on the y-axis. So if I wanted to move that rectangle to the right, I would just like add like a 20 there, and then to move it this way, and it would just like move. And so I'll get more into like how to define elements in a second. But that's it. There's not much to it. So the next thing is like, how do you add elements, and what elements can you add to the canvas? And in this case, you can add all these elements. And this one is like more responsive, and you can see how it shrinks. And it's more responsive because I define it on CSS to be more responsive, basically. So you have that little bit of control. But the problem is that as you make it smaller, the elements become pixelated, right? So it's not a very good option. And because remember, these are pixels, and once you have pixels, it's like you're stuck with them at the resolution that they were created. And so what can you create here? And this, I'm not going to go through each one of them because it's basically a lot of code. But basically, you can define or you can import into the canvas anything that you want. You could do rectangles here. You could do this another one. You can do paths. This is how you define a path. You begin the path. You move the cursor to wherever you want it. Then you make a line, and then you stroke it, and then there's another path. So we're doing with the X cross there. You want to make a triangle. You do this, which basically is like lines. So as you can see, like you have to pretty much do all the work. You have to do it by yourself. You can't just define like a shape. There's very, very few primitives. So there's libraries that help you with like achieve this, and I'll talk about it later. And actually, in the subreddit, there's like I included a list of all the libraries that you can use if you don't want to like be doing triangles by yourself, which nobody wants. You could just do it by importing a JavaScript library that does shapes and for the canvas. And again, you go forward, and then you have, what else do you have? You have like another rectangle. You have like fields. You have lines. That return was like done with a line. You get like some gotchas. You have to begin paths whenever you're like defining new elements, because if you don't, then you end up like. So in this case, if I comment this line, the line just jumped all the way to where like the last path was, right? So those are like little paths. Again, this is like an introduction, so I'm just like going over it. I don't want you to become experts, but you will not become an expert by watching this. But if you want to like see all these shapes and how they're made, you can go to the code pen, and the information is there. And the more interesting things happen, like you have like circles, that you can make. You can make all kinds of like angles. You get complex paths, things that have like points that you can manipulate. For instance, these curves, this one has like a tension point here that pulls it down. This one, the frowny face, these are like 2 points that like pull it up. And then what you can also do is like you can import paths, and they become canvas elements. So this chunk of code is a path, which is the JavaScript symbol, right? So on top of this, you can also deal with images, but that's a whole different topic, which I'll talk about next. And so how do you add images? So again, the canvas element is up there. You don't have any CSS. And this is a little bit more complex. But basically, you define the image first. These are the 2 lines that I told you that are never going to change. So those are the lines. you define an image, and then you have to create like an event listener to know when the image has been loaded. And when the image has been loaded, you grab that image, and now you have access to those pixels, and you can do whatever you want with them. So in this case, you want to draw the image into the canvas. And once you do that, then you end up with an image. And so you might think this is a lot of work to get like an image of a cat that I can just do with like a tag. And so why go through all this trouble? And the trouble is that once you have this image, you can get to the pixels in the image. You can manipulate the pixels. And to give you an example, Snapchat, which is worth billions, bought a company that did these pixel manipulations for 150 million. So there's money in knowing how to do these things, right? And you can do these things with just like DOM elements, or you can do them very, very, in a very limited way. So another thing I want to briefly talk about is how to make the canvas responsive. And this is the part that I told you. In this case, this is the canvas. And again, another canvas there, or like there, sorry. And the same two lines. But in this case, we're going to define our own coordinate system. And we're going to say, this canvas is going to like this rectangle is going to be the size that we define by defining our like viewports. So we have to define the size of our window. We have to define the width of the canvas, and on and on. And then I'm going to introduce you to this function. If you're going to, well, no, it's not. It's more a convention than a function. And this, whenever you're dealing with the canvas, hi John.
Hey.
How's it going? I'm hoping to make this informal, but like, you know, I've already like lost two people, you know, it's like one like just run away from his life, the other one like fell asleep. So, you know,
It's just getting better.
it is, yeah, it's, well, I just get another one. So
I'll
it's,
stay here and stay.
yeah. And just throw some water or something, you know. And so basically in this case, what we're doing is like the draw function is, since you define the canvas, you are responsible for drawing the canvas whenever you feel like it. So in this case, I want to define it. I want to redraw the canvas whenever I'm resizing the window. So that's why down here I have an event listener for the resize. Okay, so whenever I resize this thing, it's going to say, okay, the canvas height is going to, this is multiple assignation, which you might or might not know, and gets defined from here, then to here, then to here. And so you're defining the canvas height by the window inner height, and the width by the window inner width. Sorry, the width this by the window inner width. So the result is when you scale it, your rectangle, which is defined here, gets scaled by a new set of coordinates. So basically, you are defining your own like pixel coordinates, which is something that it's, again, you know, it sounds like, you know, daunting, but this is with great power, comes great responsibility. So, you know, you have to do these things, you know, because there's no CSS to do it for you. Yes.
Yeah, just one question. The numbers you use for the coordinates, are they pixels or are they like virtual pixels?
They are pixels. Yeah. That's it's super simple, you know. Everything is pixels, and everything starts from like, you know, the top, and so you would get like 0, 0 here, and like whatever, like, you know, whatever the width is down there, and height as well. So again, I'll at the end of this talk, you'll know about
all the scaling you have to do yourself.
That's correct. Or, I mean, again, there's many ways, you know, because again, this you know, this is like an open highway. You can do whatever you want. You can resize this by, and this one only, I don't know if this one is going to work because it only works with the window. So yeah, it's resizing that element. And again, I have like listeners here for like resizing and loading. And now you are resizing the height and the width of the canvas itself. and the elements inside it. So in this case, so this will degrade in a way. So I mean, don't worry if you don't get like all the nuance in it. Just like understand that there's like a few ways of resizing this. So in other ways, it can be made responsive if you want to. It just takes a little bit more effort than just defining 100%, right? So so that's what I wanted to communicate. And so now I want to talk to you about why I got into the canvas in the first place. And for that, I'm going to show you, because I know this is like the middle of the talk, and some of you guys are like, again, these things get like very dense, very fast. So I'm going to talk about something completely different, and that's like neuroscience, and which again is not like a very easy subject, but like, I wish, but it's completely different from what I'm talking. And this is why I got into the canvas in the first place. And that's because for the last 5 to 6 years, I've been trying to recreate like human vision, the way we humans see, and in an analog for computers. And I just been stumbling with it because we see in a fundamentally different way that computers, it's like computers like see things in a serial way, whereas like we are like very parallel. There's like millions of like cells in your eyeball registering information, right? So I want to access, basically all I wanted to do was access the information, visual information in real time, and give it a 1 and a 0. That's all I wanted to do. And that's incredibly hard. So at some point I stumbled upon like the canvas, and the canvas made it possible in like a week, So to do that, I'm going to show you the example that I built. And this is an example. So I'll start with an image, So this is, sorry, upload. So that's Luciano. That's a friend's dog, and he's a sweetheart. But basically, this is an image, and what I do with this image is I can pixelate it, and and this again, everything is using the canvas, and so I'm just pixelating this and making bigger pixels as I go, right? And so that's one thing I can do. I can apply a threshold. And threshold, like you don't realize it, but like your eyes are doing this all the time. And basically they're like making a difference between light and dark. And they can do it. So for instance, like if it's daylight, they do it at this rate. And if it's like the night, they do it like at a more brighter, like, rate. And this varies like across species. So, and on, right? And, like you can do more mundane things like add like a grid, right? So what I want to see if I can do right now is do this in real time. And to do this, I unfortunately have to open this on Firefox, because there's not that many, the standards like vary. So then some functions that are like available for like Chrome are not available for Firefox, right? And so there we go. And so now I am gonna turn the cameras on you.
Everyone signed the release, right?
Wait, let's see.
Pixelate me enough so that you can't tell it's me.
All right, so is that good? Everybody's in frame. Okay, it's gonna be a little jittery, okay? But there we go. You are pixelated now. And so you can move, and it's just to make sure that it's live. And I don't know if you noticed, but up there's like a little image as well. And that image is also live. And that one is not pixelated, right? And so I'm gonna prove it because now I'm gonna apply a threshold to you. And so, if you move, like I'm gonna just pass my hand, You know, you see, and the upper one, you know, you can't, you know, the upper one is still live, you know, it has, you know, there's nothing applied to it. And we're doing this in real time, and we're doing it with a canvas, and we're doing it on a browser, you know, and it's all just JavaScript. And so moving a little bit forward, like, you know, again, you know, I started with this because I wanted to do something very simple, which is like, I want to grab this information and I want to give like ones to the zero, ones to the white things, white pixels, and zeros to the black ones. That sounded horrible. Let's give ones to the black ones and like zeros to the white ones for a change. I hope nobody got that. So anyway, so let's get started with like, you know, first of all, bigger pixels, right? Because we want to see what we're doing. Then I want to add like a grid. And finally, I'll go with a binary. And I don't know if you can see it, but like now there's like zeros where there's like, you know, white space, and ones where there's like black. And this is exactly what's happening in your eye at some point. In between your eye and your like, you know, your visual cortex, at some point during that, this is happening. It's not exactly the same, you know, and a lot of other things are happening, but this is a start. And it's, again, it was done in JavaScript and it's doing live. And if you see, there's like a little red pill here, which anybody wants to guess what happens if I click the red pill? So, well, now we have entered the matrix. And now, again, we are still live. And sometimes my computer dies here because I haven't optimized it. But again, this is like live, and you know, I can go further, and you still can see the image, the video on top, which is you know, which is live.
I don't even see the code anymore. I just see web developer and JavaScript developer.
Yeah, I know. He's good. Maybe he's new. I don't know. For all we know. So that is the power of the canvas. So these are the things that you can do with the canvas. And that's still Luciano. And I'm sorry, Garvin, we're not done yet. I thought you were clapping.
Oh, no.
Okay, so moving forward, we still have like another like 40 minutes to go. Hopefully it'll be like go down easier. So now let's talk about pixels, because I was, you know, showing you an example that uses a lot of pixels. So you guys, all of you, stare at pixels all day, every day. Have you ever wondered what is a pixel? You know, it's like, I mean, some of you probably know, but you know, I wasn't like very sure. So like, you know, I added this thing. So like, that's a pixel up there, and it's like, just, you know, what the hell am I? You know. And again, you know, this is a little bit goes with neuroscience and like, you know, biology. In your eyes, besides like rods, which are like a specific type of cell that like allows you to like do black and white or like contrast, you have these things called cones. And the cones are like, they grab like light from the electromagnetic spectrum that goes into a very specific bands. And in other ways, they allow you to see color. And there's like three types, like red, green, and blue, right? So when there is light, you know, they fire up at different rates and give you a combination of about 10 million colors, right? Which sounds very impressive until you realize that a pigeon can process 1 billion colors. So next time you see a pigeon, just imagine that the pigeon is going through like an acid trip, because it's you're gonna have 1 billion colors all the time, all day long, you know. And so that's why they're probably just going about it. So anyway, so 10, that's, you know, should have told me this is like a time.
I'll be able to get that image out of my head now, Peter.
Anyway, every pigeon is going to run out. All right. So in order to emulate this, we have done on the computer, there's like in this computer, there's like, you know, thousands of like pixels. And each pixel, which again, it's is that little guy up there. Each pixel is composed of, well, 3 or 4, like depends on the color model, but this one is the one that we use for the web, one of the ones that we use the most for the web. And it's the same deal, you know, it's like we have a red space, we have a green space, and then we have a blue space. And the values going between 0 and 255, right? So some of you might be thinking, well, like that's stingy. Why give it like 0 to 255? Why not give it like 0 to 1000, right? You know, because I mean, we are not counting. These are like just like virtual stuff. And I'll get to that point in 1 second. But we also give it an extra space, which is the A, which stands for like alpha, and it's transparency, right? So in between these 4 things, so basically it just means if you want to make things transparent, you change the pixel to like instead of 1, you change it to 0.5, right? And then you get like a transparent, translucent image. So all these things together give us a pixel, and the pixel gives us 16 million colors. So basically, from the 0 to 255 values, we get 6 million more than what our eyes can see. And so I don't know, maybe we are like working for pigeons. I don't know, because they can see things that we can't, and these values apply to them, right? And so now I'm going to show you how easy it is to access the pixels with the canvas. So again, we are back in CodePen, and we have, in this case, I have the canvas here tagged. We have, this is the black, this is an information box, basically. This is like just basic CSS, nothing to worry about. And this sounds this looks a little intimidating because I have to import this image. So that's this image, but basically because it has like some cross-domain issues that you might have experienced in your life. Basically, you can't like import stuff from like other websites, and so that's why I had to embed the PNG as a base 64 image. But all it is that you get the image as I showed you before. You add an event listener for when the image arrives. You draw the image as I explained to you. And down here, you have a color picker. And the color picker, all it does is goes over the image and records the position of your mouse and returns an image data object. And that image data object has those numbers that I told you, the 0 to 255, right? So if I move my mouse, 2 things happen. One is like the background like changes color. And then the other one that happens is that I am reading in real time the values. So then if I go all the way, up, I get, just red, 255, and the red one, if I go to the green, 253 more or less, because again, it's not exact, and blue, again, right? And so if I go to black, they'll go to like down, and if I go to white, they'll go up, right? So this, you do it on the canvas, and this is, again, another thing you cannot just do on, you cannot just do with like a DOM element, and this is done in just like a few lines of code. Right? So, and again, all these examples are yours. Do whatever you want with them. They are like live. You can, use them whenever, like, you need to do a color picker, or like, somebody tells you about Canvas, go back to them, right? And so that is how you deal with pixels on the canvas. And we have half an hour left, and I can either show you a very experimental project that I have. I can show you how to animate the canvas. I can try doing them both, but they're going to be a little rushed. What do you want to do?
Experimental.
Experimental? Okay. So you are giving away the spectacular supplemental bonus slide. It was animating the canvas with Mr. Pixel. Don't you feel bad now?
I do.
You feel
it. Awesome, and you publish that for everyone, right?
Yes. So anyways, thanks. And now let's get experimental. Oh, before I go, I'm just going to show you very, very quickly whoa. Why is it doing that?
You're just controlling it.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. So these are like very quickly the animation. I won't go into them in detail, but basically this one, you animate stuff on the canvas by clicking on it. And again, you go through like, all the things in the canvas here. And it's very, very simple, it's like 20 lines of code to animate this guy with plain JavaScript. And you then move on to automating things. So this one I just click, and then the thing just moves by itself, right? And again, it's a little bit more complex. It's like 34 lines of code. And but that's how you would progress, and you use technology that we don't use anymore, a thing called set interval, which repeats a function. So we people that animate things don't like using this now because we have a better thing, which is this one. And this is the last example for it's a more robust animation example. And this one is Mr. Pixel again. And this one has like two buttons, and whenever I click the start, just it animates, and then it bounces back and forth. So this animation, and you can stop it whenever you want. So this is a more complex example because it does a lot of things that the other ones don't. And but mainly it uses an object-based approach. So when you're dealing in JavaScript with objects, it becomes easier to do complex animations because you can define an object and then from that object make multiple ones. And now you have particles that you can animate. So I'd just like to give you like a very brief rundown. You have like, this is Mr. Pixel, and then he has a body, a face, etc., etc. And then he has an update function that controls its position, and a draw function, that draws him every time. But every time you want to change his position, the first thing you do with the canvas is you clear the canvas, right? So, and you clear the canvas here with this thing called clear rectangle. And so this is all very well known, like if you're animating. So animation is like a very complex subject, but I just want you to know that you have access to it. And even though you guys want to get experimental, I wanted to bring this up because like the experiment that I'm doing, it's a very rough thing. If it doesn't work, I apologize. But it's kind of like weird and experimental, and it's based on the movie Blade Runner. And has everybody seen the movie Blade Runner? Right. Okay, so there is a scene on Blade Runner where he's lying in his couch, and so I'm not gonna show the whole thing, only the important part. And then he realizes a very important thing about the movie, which I'm not gonna go. But basically, this is it. He's sitting in the couch. He opens the thing, and he yells at the computer, and the computer interacts with him. And so since I'm a UI UX guy, I was like, well, I want to remake that thing. It's like I think we have the technology now to remake it. So then I want to see if we can do that right now. And it's, again, this is very buggy, so I might coward and actually do the console thing with it. And it's very complex to set up as well, so just bear with me. And again, this needs to be opened in a very specific browser because not every browser supports the elements that I'm using.
Will they at some point?
Yeah, at some point, yeah. And
except for IE. Right.
Yeah, although Edge is right there at the forefront of the standard too. Yep, they're finally making up for those years of stagnating 96.
We just lost the Google screen sharing.
Okay.
I think you quit out of.
Yeah, I need to use Chrome. Is that going to be an issue?
That's all right. We can do it. Yeah.
So this is the interface. This is something that you talk to. It's like this is just this is a shower speaker basically, but because the original one is called Esper. And I'm gonna just see if I can finish setting it up. And this one is this one, I think. Connected. So we are connected with this guy. And so we should be ready to go. So I'm gonna try it first. And of course, since I'm the creator, like it hates me. So it hates my accents, you know? So maybe you guys will have like a better chance than I do. Anyways, here we go. We're gonna try Casper for the first time in public. Wake up. Okay, enhance 5123. So it's hating me right now, it's not doing it. Zoom in. Sleep. And so again, you know, it hates me for some reason. Oh, I think sometimes I need to press the, let's see, right. And again, as I said, it's very, very experimental. Sleep. Okay, I need to calibrate it a little bit as well. Wake up. Wake up. Enhance 4152. And it just refuses. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit by going to the console, and maybe you guys will have like a better chance. But I'll just like show you what it does when it's working correctly. And it just goes, adds the coordinates, it zooms in, and then just moves in, right? So the voice part is not important really for like this. I mean, it would be cool if it would work with me, but you know, what is important is that this is using the canvas. So the animation up there is like a canvas animation. The information here is canvas text. And how you interact with the image, like moving in and out, is also done with the canvas, right? So let me see. Zoom out. First of all, let me see if I'm connected. Zoom out. Somebody wants to try? Maybe you'll have like better luck.
There you go.
Zoom out. Yeah.
Enhance 4132.
All right, doesn't like it.
Zoom in. Enhance 5152.
You can say right, maybe.
Right. Left.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
So that's why it helps when you're like drunk, because you're gonna be here like a lot, right? And so let's see if it helps. Like load Waldo. And again, it sleep. So the problem is, like, I want you to understand that like the problem is with me, is not with the program or the library, because it uses a thing called Anyang, which is like, it uses web speech. And so how it works is like you define the commands, and so it's defining an accent, which is in, I think is like British English or something like that. So it helps if you like, instead of like doing like sleep, you use like SLIP, instead of like the proper pronunciation of like sleep. So I didn't have like a lot of time to like try it, you know. So
kind of log what it thought you said into the console.
It doesn't do that yet, but like, you know, yes, it would be cool. So again, that's why I said this is very, very experimental. Wake up. And sometimes it works. And like again, like, you know, I bought like 2 microphones, and this one was the only one that worked, which wasn't even like, you know, supposed to be for this. And wake up. Load Waldo. And it doesn't, again, it doesn't, I don't know if this is like a sign of things to come, but it doesn't like its creator. But you can play like a game of Waldo if you have like the patience for it. You know, you can see if you can like, you know, zoom in. Well, it doesn't work for me, obviously, but somebody else wants to give it a try? Come on up, pass.
Okay.
So just try speaking to the little dot. And I'll just make sure that. I believe that you should be just like able to do that like now.
Do I have to do a British accent?
No, just like, you know, the problem is that it's my accent, it's not yours.
Zoom in. Do I hold it?
No, you should be able to just do it that way.
Zoom in.
Maybe try with a British accent.
Zoom in, mate. Left. Right.
Try pushing the bottom, the
Oh, the top bit.
yeah.
Zoom in.
Try again.
Zoom in. Zoom in. Zoom in.
Say, just like say sleep, maybe.
Sleep. Bedtime. Sleep.
No, it doesn't like you at all. It's sorry, like with some people it just takes, you know, time, and with other people it's just like, you know, it just does not do it. So, but this is sort of like where it's going, I suppose. At some point we'll be talking, and if you want to experiment with it, you can do it. I can reset it for you if you want, if you feel lucky. Let me just make sure that it's working. So before. Just start by saying wake up.
Press the
Huh? No, without pressing the button.
wake up.
And try just zoom in or enhance, whatever you feel like trying to say.
Zoom in.
And I'm sorry, it doesn't recognize you either. So again, it's one of those things that like it's very, very experimental. I'm hoping to get it like, you know, better, like, you know, in better shape at some point this year. But you know, it's a little bit like, you know, like the movie.
The interface doesn't seem that experimental. It seems pretty polished. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, the interface is fine. It's just like, you know, the speaking with it is tough. So what I think I'm going to do, because I want to have this on a place where people are going to be drunk, is give them like a manual version, so they don't. So if the speech doesn't work, then I can just like add like a panel there that they can just like input the coordinates at some point. So, but anyways, like again, as I said, this was going to be a very and then of course it doesn't work now. So it was going to be a very experimental thing. But you got like the gist of it, hopefully, and right. And now we're going to see the whole presentation again. Now I just want to say thank you, and thanks for like, you know, I know the subject is a bit dry, and but like thanks for coming, and like I hope you at least got a bit more informed about what the campus is.
thanks everyone for coming. Another round for Kino. Great job. It takes a lot of work and a lot of guts to put a presentation together and come up here and give it in front of a bunch of engineers. I know, I've done a lot of these, which segues into my next topic, which is we need speakers, like I said before. We got the next 2 slots filled, but we need people to come and speak. You know, don't just come here and sap the life out of the speakers. You guys got to give back too. It takes a lot of work to keep this thing running, so we'd love to hear from you. Any questions? See me or Garvin. You feel free to talk outside the building. We've got to leave here in about 12 minutes. We've got a hard stop at 8:30. But anything else, just let me know. If there's anything you want us to do better with this group, let me or Garvin know. Anything you like that we're doing, let us know that too. It's always good to know if things are going well. It's great to see you all. Thanks for coming.
Sorry, I hope you weren't doing anything on there.
Cool, man. Hey, John. All right.
Hey,
Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, I got the memo.
Yeah.
That's for
That's
the
microphone.
receiver for the microphone.
Yeah, that's another microphone. We're like streaming the
Little
yeah,
slow, I'm trying to
presentation.
figure out what the next one.
Thank you very much.
Otherwise, my pleasure.
Sure. That was good to have some in your pocket.